Lockdown and mental health. Now, it's no secret that quarantine and lockdown has greatly affected mental health. But how? And that's exactly what got me thinking in January when a household pulse survey pulled up this statistic. That's right, a 30% increase, which got me thinking, was this due to lockdown? And in came my project idea. I decided to make a survey which garnered around 135 responses and then document my results on a website. On the survey, I hope to achieve three things: determining whether people had negative mental health effects, what factors contributed to it, and if there was a way to cope, which fueled the questions on the survey. The first question just being a basic starter question, and then getting to the first point. Were you negatively affected in quarantine? It was then time to get my factors, and through my research, I essentially narrowed down three factors. Firstly, age groups, because with age, lockdown differently affects you. For example, adults more commonly have some amount of stability versus, say, a college student. Secondly, your career status, essentially how your job affects you. And then thirdly, coronaphobia, the essential fear of getting the virus and whether or not you can recover from it. Now, once my survey was completed, it was time to wait for my results, and after a while, I began working on my website. In this website, I go through my quarantine experience, information about the project, the information behind each question, as in the research for why I asked them, and obviously my results and a works cited page. Now, speaking of the results, what were they? Firstly, were people negatively affected in lockdown? And the answer is yes, and more than they should be. I say this because in July 2020, a Census Bureau report that one-third of adults were experiencing anxiety and depression. While I in no way had the same number of responses as them, it's still pretty safe to say that my data is somewhat accurate, especially since all of the things that have happened since July. Now onto the factors I surveyed them on. Firstly, age groups. And what I researched versus what I got was actually pretty similar. Essentially, CDC studies were done in August that had concluded that adults around 40 and up would experience less anxiety and depression than those who are younger. And this could largely be since the older you are, you most likely already have job and family stability, as I stated earlier. Now, on to career status. I was actually a little surprised by this, because I had thought that the working class would be really affected. But according to the data, it appears not. This is probably due to the fact that by now, companies have figured out how to operate online, giving people opportunities to get jobs again. However, as we can see with students, the effect is much worse, which is due to the limited learning experience in online school itself and the limited interaction between student and teacher, which evidently would cause more stress. Now on to coronaphobia. It's pretty clear that this is a big cause of people having anxiety and depression, with over 55% of the people who knew someone who had COVID experiencing anxiety and depression. And based on the responses of those who knew someone who had COVID and experienced negative mental health effects, it caused mild coronaphobia. So how do people manage to deal with all of this? And the big answer is hobbies. Do they work? I mean, the data could not be any more clear. And the answer is a definitive yes. Looking at the chart detail, we can see that hobbies have helped people continue to get through quarantine, due to the three factors that I stated in my research, being hobbies distract you from your worries, shifts your attention to something interesting, and it boosts your self-confidence and self-esteem. And those are my results of the project, and that's my project.